Tony Taylor. Are you here for Leaders Lead the podcast? Let's go. Hey, how did you beat me? Look, let me tell you about this podcast. We got like 5 seconds. Leaders Lead the podcast is about leadership. Not just the leader without, but the leader within. All of these leaders that I'm talking to across the country, well, across the world now, they have one thing in common, and that's that they have overcome some insurmountable obstacles to get to where they're at today. Come on, let's go. This is Leaders Lead the podcast. I'm super excited. We got a really special guest today. We got my brother, Walt McKinley. He is an author, got a new book coming out. He's an international keynote speaker. He talks about mental health, and he helps teams in corporate America get to a point to where they're high performance. So this is the guy that you need to reach out to if you're paying attention to those lagging indicators. I want to say right now, you want to reach out to Walt and he'll get you to where you're high performing. What's up, brother?
Tony Taylor, what's going on, brother, man? I'm so glad to finally be on here with you. It has been a long time coming. I know we probably would have did this 3 months ago, but I wanted to wait until my memoir was almost complete and people had a place to go to be part of this community and, more importantly, this movement we're building around mental health. And so now that my memoir, Monsters in My House, is getting ready to go to Amazon tomorrow to start getting some of those, start the publishing process, it was time. It was time to join you. So I'm happy to be here with you. Thanks for having me on.
Man, thanks for coming on. And I want to say thank you for being so patient. I mean, because we've had some technical difficulties. We were supposed to be done right now, but we're hanging in there just like anything else. You and I, we're both veterans, so we're used to shit kind of blowing up.
Overtime and adapt. You know how that's what we do.
Yeah, man, you're doing something incredible. I saw a video with you talking about your book and talking about the obstacles that you have to overcome. And I want to say congratulations for having the courage to write a book talking about the things that you're talking about. And the name of the book is going to be Monsters in My House, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that. And the only reason, not the only reason, but the reason that I'm bringing this up is a lot of, like I told you before, a lot of our viewers and listeners, they get inspired by seeing people like yourself. They get inspired by seeing knuckleheads like me doing what I'm doing. And I tell them, man, dude, you have no idea what I had to go through to get to this point right now. And they're like, no, there's no way that you went through that. And that's fucking inspiring for a lot of people. So I want to tell you, thank you for talking to us about the monsters in your house.
Yeah. So thanks, brother. I appreciate it. And yeah, I think, everybody's got some trauma, right? My trauma in particular was something that nightmares are made from, that movies are made of. It was extreme in nature, where I moved 14 times in the first 16 years of my life, back and forth from parents to step parents to foster parents, everything from being dropped off on doorsteps to being kidnapped in the middle of the school day and moving to another state with a parent. And during that time, there was, as you can imagine, there's a lot of tumultuousness, but there was also a lot of abuse, really extreme physical, emotional abuse, neglect, going hungry. I had things like being thrown in the basement for hours at a time. And the book cover for Monsters in My House depicts that. It was my view as a little boy with my stepfather at the top of the steps and the silhouette coming behind him. And he used to think it was fun to throw a scary werewolf Halloween mask down there with me at 8 years old and terrified me with that. And if you remember at 8 years old, most kids are running and jumping over onto their bed because they're afraid something's going to grab them from underneath the bed. At that age, I was being locked in basements in the cold winter of Indiana. And so, from that point, just extreme abuse the whole entire time, no matter who I lived with, until I almost took my life at 13 years old. My dad took his girlfriend to Disneyland for the weekend. I was so excited, thinking I was going to get ready to go. And she stepped out of the house and I said, "What are we going this weekend?" And he goes, "What makes you think you're going to go?"
Wow.
I said, "Well, I just thought I was going to get to go." And he goes, "Well, I love her and not you, so why would I take you?"
Your stepdad said that to you?
My father said that to me.
Father. Yeah.
And at this point, I was living with him, and and so he went, took her that weekend, and almost took my own life. And I'll never forget, by the grace of God, there's been times in my life in the darkest moments where God has really been there for me. And this was one of those times where he truly just saved my life because I was so angry, so frustrated, so full of despair. And whether you're 13, whether you're 30, whether you're 60, everybody can relate to that feeling of despair and that mental health, especially in this situation we're in now, where you've got all these extra stressors on top of just what normal life provides for you, to where I almost took my life. And then at 16, I moved in with a family member and testified against my father in court for the abuse. And it was the first time in my life in that fight or flight mode that you're constantly in and that churn that you're in as a kid. The first time in my life that I ever realized, you know what, I can fight for myself. I can fight for myself. And he was berating me on the witness stand, and I yelled out he was lying, and everybody knew he was lying. And he went to yell at me, and the judge stopped the proceedings, said he'd heard enough. And my father was convicted of child abuse and endangerment. And so I still had a lot of work to do, even though I had someone finally at 16 in my life that championed me and she loved me. And that's the thing, right? Like, we don't know what anybody else is going through. I think that's what we need to think about. We take things personal. Stress causes us to lash out. Like, we're not focused. We're not doing what we need to do. But the reality is everybody's gone through and going through something. And so when and I think John Maxwell is the one who says this, we need to seek to understand instead of just reacting in moments. And so, I still had a lot of reacting I need to do. And at 19, I got about 2 days away from robbing a liquor store, a Circle K convenience store. And all this is in my book too. Had a lot of pain in there. And next thing you know, my buddy's mom gets sick 2 days before. We had guns, we had ski masks, we had everything. It was going to happen. And my grandmother's, I went to visit her, and she goes, "You need to get out of here. There's no good for you here in Yuma." And I went in the Navy. And that started my miraculous turnaround to being the man I am today, and being married 22 years, with my wife 25 years this month, two amazing teenage daughter. I had an incredible career in the military, an incredible career in corporate America. And now I'm taking my life experiences on the road and doing speaking. I've got some stuff booked in junior highs and high schools and colleges and corporate America, and taking these skills that I've learned along the way so that I can pour into other people so they know their history does not define their legacy. And more importantly, where they started definitely doesn't have to be where they end. But there's some decisions we got to make as people along the way to help us get to ultimately where we want to go.
Oh, bro. I love that, man. I applaud you, and I will forever for what you're doing, because you could have, I mean, healed and got through this, but it sounds like to me that you have a mission of not only healing yourself, but you're trying to heal other people. How important is that to you?
It's everything. If I was worried about and we talked about this a little bit before we started, everybody's flexing their cars and their jets and their, helicopters and what they have. But none of that matters. We don't take none of that with us. The ultimate flex to me is vulnerability and authenticity. And when you're living in that vulnerable and authentic space, your level of happiness increases. And when you're filling your own cup and that's pouring out, how you treat people, how you affect everybody around you magnifies 100 times what it would be on its own. So, I feel like the world needs people to show up authentically and vulnerable and share their stories so people know that they're not alone. Because that's the hardest thing. When people have gone through trauma, they feel alone, they feel desperate, they feel like nobody's going to understand. But there's an army of people out there that have done the healing work. And if nobody steps up to do this, we're going to have adults who are traumatized, and hurt people, unfortunately. So 78% of all abuse is perpetrated by family members because it sweeps under the rug. We don't talk about it. Mm-hmm. And the reality is, if we don't do something, if we don't start right now today, we're going to have children who get hurt, who become hurt adults in this generational cycle continues. And so, we need people to start breaking that generational cycle of abuse and just fighting to be the heroes of their family. But it starts from within. It starts first. But a lot of people don't know how. And so my last chapter in my book actually, so it's this memoir, and I just felt so compelled this last chapter to talk about the 4 steps that I teach people, that I used myself to overcome my trauma, so that they don't just leave the book feeling inspired, but what do they do about it? They leave the book with something tangible that they can start to utilize in their own life while they're feeling that motivation and inspiration from reading that. And so, I don't know if you know about Clubhouse. I don't know if you've been on there at all.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Podcast, so I host a weekly room in there called Trauma to Triumph every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Why you never invited me? What's up with that, bro?
I didn't even know you were on there, but I'm gonna look you up. Next Wednesday. And what's cool about it is we had almost 200 people in there last week. I've only done 7 episodes in there, and I bring on amazing people, incredible people that have just stories that would blow your mind. I mean, I feel like mine is, but on a whole nother level. And what we do is I host the room, but really it's about giving other people a voice to share their triumph for those people who are still struggling, because some people don't need to hear my voice, Tony. Some people don't need to hear your voice. They need to hear the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th. They need to hear somebody's voice, their story, and the way they tell it. And I'm just hosting the platform to allow the freedom for people to share, so that we can do healing work and start to change. If it takes one person at a time to do it, I'll do this until literally the day that I die, because there's not enough work that I can do until there's not children being traumatized the way I was. And so you got to start with the adults to make sure it doesn't happen to the kids.
Yeah, man, that's a hell of a line of work to do, man. I think that you're a freaking hero, bro. You're a hero. You got me tongue tied over here, because I can imagine having to relive those experiences over and over again. How did the book, how was that writing the book? Was it healing? Was it painful, or like, what did you get out of that experience?
Yeah,
And I'll ask you, not just for, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but not just for the viewers. I'm asking for myself, because I'm afraid to write a book. I started writing something one day, and just something for a newspaper article and something. And I was just telling one of my friends, man, I don't want to write a book. I don't have enough stuff, or I'm afraid. I start writing it, and then I'm like, oh my God, that was freaking painful. And I'm like, I think I got my first chapter for the book, but it hurt. That's why I'm asking.
So look, I'm going to give you a little snippet into what allowed me to understand the power in my story and speaking my truth, which is the first thing I talk to people about. There's something about, people say, write your trauma down, do this, but it's different when you speak it out loud. There's a freedom that comes with letting that pain and those secrets and that shame that the secrets cause out and just off of you. And when I was in the Navy, so I was enlisted for 10 years and I became an officer for 10, and I was a lieutenant. And yeah, that's what all my buddies say too.
Mustang.
I'm a lieutenant, and so I joke. That's how I connect with people. That's how I have fun with people. You keep the mood light, work hard, play hard. And there was one junior sailor that worked for me, and she would always be giving it to me back. And she's walking past my desk, and she goes past my desk the 3rd time, and I said, I won't say her name, but I'm like, oh, you can't say hi this morning. You just walk past my desk, and I didn't say nothing this morning, And she goes, I'm just really having a tough day. And I said, are you all right? She goes, not really. I said, let's take a walk. So we take a walk, and I can chat. And I want to talk about the superpowers you get from trauma. Like these things, when you stop wallowing in the victimhood of what happened to you, and you start empowering yourself through the skills that you learn through the trauma, it's like superpower that just elevates you amongst normal humans. It really does, for those of us who've been through trauma and healed, know. And so I just know, I intimately know, as soon as somebody says something like that, I know that's what it is. And I said, hey, and I shared just a little bit of my trauma with her. All it did is provide a safe space for her to say, he understands, I'm not alone. And she opens up about some things that happened to her as a little girl. multiple times. And as a mother, new mother, she felt she was having trouble rectifying, like, how could her mother allow those things to happen, right? So she allows me to help get her some counseling through the base, through Family Service Center. And I said, if anybody asks why you're leaving for your 10 a.m. appointment, you tell them because Lieutenant McKinley said so, and you have them come talk to me. It's private. I'm allowing you to go. And this will allow you to pick your daughter up from daycare when you're supposed to pick her up after work. So she goes through it. You could feel the difference. Like, you could feel her get energized and smiling again, or feeling good again. She ends up transferring, right? And then I end up transferring later. She comes and finds me, no joke, about a year after this started, 6 months after the last time I saw her, about a year into the entire journey for her. And she pops into the office where I'm at. I'm like, oh my gosh, hey, great to see you. And she's like, hey, you got a minute? And I said, yeah, of course I got a minute. And she goes, okay, it's my turn to ask you to go for a walk. And we go take this walk. And I get choked up every time thinking about this, because when you ask, like, how personal is it for me to help people? This is it. And we go out and we sit at a picnic table, and she says, I just want you to know that the day you talked to me, I was going to take my life. And because of you, you were the first man who's ever cared about me without wanting something in return. And you saved my life. And I said, I just hugged her and I said, I can't even say thank you to that. It's the most humbling thing anybody's ever said to me. And I said, just thank you for allowing me to be a small piece in that journey and trusting me enough to allow me to help you. And you know what I learned, Tony? There's power in speaking your truth, because speaking your truth not only does it heal you, but it lets people know they're not alone. It creates a safe space. And that's what we're doing in the Trauma to Triumph room. That's what this book is about. Like, I wasn't even going to write the book. My wife's like, oh my God, if you don't write this book, I'm going to kick you in the shins. We've been married 22 years, together 25. She wasn't having it.
Good on her. Good on her for telling you to write that book, bro.
And 9 months ago, when I left corporate America, I was at a tipping point for me. I was miserable, working me to death. Telling my leaders, I need you guys to hire somebody. They're like, hang on. I'm like, I can't do 3 people's jobs by myself no more. And I had a nervous breakdown. You know what it was? It was God telling me it's time to step into my purpose, for me to align my vision of what I thought I should do with what his purpose for my life was. Everything that I've been through has set me up for this moment in my life right now.
Wow.
And that moment is to help heal people from their wounds and the things that they're hanging on to. And it's the starting point from that is this memoir. And there's so much more to come. This is just the beginning of the rest of my life. And I'm more happy, more fulfilled, more just like energy, and just like lightning bolt hit me every single day than I ever was making a lot of money in corporate America. It'll never compare to the impact that you can have by using your voice.
I tell people that all the time, man. I made a decision a year ago, this October. Well, I didn't, it was almost like the decision was made for me. I had already been speaking and, kind of doing my thing. I had a moment. It's crazy, man. You brought me back. I had a similar moment with the lady that said she was basically saying she didn't know what she was going to do after she got off work. She was thinking about giving up. And this is me. I'm on my soapbox. I was working as a safety director. I had no business, talking about the stuff that I was talking about. I was just trying to empower the people that were going through pain. I was going through pain at the same time. And I'm just telling them, hey, if you get fired for coming and talking to me about an injury that you have, let me know, because I'm going to walk out with you. I happen to know a bunch of people, connected to a bunch of people on LinkedIn, freaking just like I got this job, I'll get the next one and I'll bring you with me if that happens. And that had an impact on somebody. And you brought me back to that moment to where I was just like, damn, that was just me venting. That was just me trying to let them know that I was there with them. And fast forward to the day, I tell you, this ain't no interview. This is a conversation. That's why I love this, man. And I love you, bro, for sharing with me what you're doing. But fast forward to a year ago, making, well, a year and a half, almost 2 years. Why do I keep saying a year? It's almost 2 years ago. But I'm sitting in the car. And I was on the phone with my wife. I had just told my wife, and I also had talked to a friend, and I'm like, is it bad that I want to get fired right now? Is it bad that I want to get fired right now? I had reached the highest point that I can go in working with safety. I had been told, hey, stay, name your price for the last job, right? Yeah. For the last job that I had. But I was just like on this pursuit of happiness. And I'm thinking that happiness is me climbing the ladder. But the more I started to climb the ladder, the more I started to really have a view on something that I did not want to be, something that I did not want to become, the things that I had become while doing so. And I'm just like, you put me in that moment. And I remember my wife saying, come home, baby. Mm. I go in the office, I got my stuff. It was time for me to leave anyway. Yeah. And I went home, and I never went back. Mm. And that felt so good, because right now, we're at this point where I'm not making nearly as much money that I was making before, nearly not even half, but that feeling of like you serving your purpose, you using your voice. There's nothing like somebody can come in here right now and say, hey, here's a job making $500,000 a year. And I would not freaking take it, because I have joy, because I have like purpose. Do you ever get to that point where you're just like, you wake up and you're just like, this is my damn purpose. I cannot believe that I'm here.
Every day, every single day. And I've had some people beta read my book right before it goes to publishing, just to get some ideas, and not people who know me super well, people that won't have that same emotional charge as like a family member reading. And every one of them has been like, I read it in one day. It's 327 pages. One day. They're like, I can't put it down. You worked me into it. And you know what? One of them told me, she goes, you made me face, first your book put me in a place to think, oh my gosh, if you can overcome that, then I know I can. Like, I got to be able to overcome my stuff too. And she's had it rough. And she goes, you put me in a place when I got to that last chapter and saw like, what were the things you did to overcome it? Because I put personal stories when I knew, like the story about the young sailor that I just told you, when certain things tipped the point for me, and I kind of just ran with it after that. And so hearing that somebody else has massively jump-started their healing journey because of some words that I wrote on paper, like how can that not energize you in a way nothing in life can? We're put on this earth to impact and share, and everybody's so concerned with winning themselves that they forget the value, not even in the community, because a community is just self. Then you've got community that takes care of each other. But the movement to make an impact in this world, the movement to do something bigger than self, the movement to literally not only change your legacy, but help change the legacy of the person that's in front of you. And that's what's missing in this world today. And that's the heart that's missing in corporate America, because everybody's so concerned about KPI or metric, or doing more with less, or not hiring employees because we're worried about the bottom line. And I get you got to win on that scale too. But if you take care of the people first, if you show them that you actually do, and you said it, you acted out of love with the woman that you were speaking with. And when you acted out of love, that bond you build with people ends up being unbreakable. That's why I still talk to so many people that I work with in both the companies from the military, because I actually really care. But I wouldn't have cared like this without going through what I did as a child, because my level of empathy and compassion and grit and resilience and initiative is at such a high level because of the things I went through. So I'm thankful as a man now that I went through those traumas, because it's allowed me to step into my purpose in a way that I never would have in my life otherwise. And so that's when you just feel it. It's like Zeus hits you with a lightning bolt every single day, and you get up and you're jacked up and you just go. And if you like, you're going to make the money, you can have that personal abundance, but it's not because you're trading your time. It's because you're trading the impact that you have on people. And that's when you live a life of fulfillment where you can authentically be yourself.
Wow.
Man, get jacked up talking about this right now. Let's
I'm
go.
jacked up right now too, man. I was going to ask you, when you go into the organizations and, we're talking about, because I always say, if you show me somebody, you present to me a manager that and I use that term fluidly, a manager, because there's a difference between just a manager and a leader. You show me a manager that's never been through anything, and you could sometimes you could just tell that we've all been through something, but I'm saying somebody that they just got handed something, right? And their life is just like perfect almost kind of thing. And you could just tell they're a little maybe wet behind the ears kind of, and you're just like, okay, you could tell. Mm-hmm. But then you look at somebody like yourself and you can see it. To me, that's a leader. Somebody that's overcame something. You can't lead me no place if you haven't been anywhere yourself. Like, how important is that? Like, do you talk about this stuff when you're talking to these organizations, and how do you package that to get them to where they get to a point to where they're high performing?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things first before you get to that point. I think number one, and in the military we say a bunch of self-looking ice cream cones, right? So that is literally what I've seen so much in corporate America. Everybody's about themselves and everybody's about getting themselves promoted. The miss is, and this is what I really teach people, the miss is, if you're focused on your team and your team knows you're in, and managers, and I really coach with managers and directors mostly, because they're leading the people. Versus the people at higher levels, they're a lot more disconnected most of the time and almost forget where they came from what I've seen. Mm-hmm. And so they're leading the people. And I ask them, when was the last time you went and sat with one of your associates and said, show me what you do? Show me how to do it. When I was at my last company, I couldn't open the computer and did it. But I still went and said, show me what you do. Where's the pain points in your job? What sucks about your job? What do you like about it? And I would do simple things, Tony. I had something called Friday Fist Bump, both my corporate entities. And I did a lot. I could do a lot of different stuff in the military. So I had about 100, anywhere from, depending on staffing, 140 to 180 people here locally. And then I had 150 in the Philippines. And I would walk around, no joke.
You were meeting people all the way in the Philippines?
Yeah.
Wow.
And no joke, I would walk around and fist bump 150 people, 180 people. And trust, I regretted it when I got back to my email and I was like, how did I just get 300 emails in this last hour, right? So I say regret jokingly. I never regretted it though. I never regretted it, because you know what I learned about roadblocks for the people actually doing the work by getting my butt up out of my chair, not acting like I'm better than any other person there, not acting like I'm a leader, right? I'm a manager. I got up and I went and talked to them, asked them how their family's doing. What are they doing this weekend? And you know what they would also tell me? Well, I'm so aggravated with this crap in the system. What are you talking about? Show me. I'll look, click, and see how it freezes. And it's not like we should have to do 12 clicks for something. We could do 2. And I was like, how would you do it different? I would do A, B, and C. Awesome. Write that to me in an email. And then I would bring them in with the BI and BA teams to have a conversation about how to optimize the flow, which affects them, and it also affects the client, right? So the service aspect of it improves because it's faster, and they would be so excited, Tony, to be part of that change process. Do you know what I didn't have to do after I walked out of that meeting with an associate in the BI and BA team? I didn't have to champion the why. You know why? Because I had my champion. I had my champion at the level of their peers, who talked about how awesome it was to be part of this, and here's what it's going to do for all of us. And then I just got to edify them. And I'd sit in there and I'd frame it up to the BI and BA people. Here's what we're going to talk about. That's about all I could help. I'm gonna bring Tony in here, and Tony's gonna really walk you guys through the nuances of what's gonna really clean up this process and take it from a 12-step process to a 2-step process.
Wow. So
Every time I walk
you're opening
around,
the doors for them.
yes, and I'm accessible because I'm fist bumping, right? It's
Yeah.
just accessibility, and I'm fun, and I'm having a good time with it. And associates started coming past my office when I was in there to tell me things that they thought can improve. And then we created a panel of associates, where one for each individual team that we had, and that was the voice of the associates, and they would bring system issues to the table that we can optimize, and they would be part of that change management. Do you know when you get in that flow, when you get in the flow, it's unstoppable. And we won Region of the Year a year after I got there, in the entire 70,000 person company, or for the US portion of it. We won Region of the Year, not because anything I did outside of giving people a voice, letting them know that they were heard, letting them know that they were seen, making myself available, and ensuring that I cleared roadblocks out of the way.
Wow.
That's it. It's not rocket science, and everybody makes it out to be, and it's wild. And you asked me about the trauma stuff. I feel like a lot of times people who've been through traumatic things become the best leaders when they've healed, though, right?
Yeah.
Because they literally have perspective. So things are tough, right? Change management is a pain in corporate America. Can be if you don't do it right. They don't get as caught up in the tumultuousness of it, of the change. You know why? Because they're like, this it? Like, y'all mad about we got to pivot and make a 50% adjustment to something on this side? That's wow. I was locked in basements as a kid. I would never say that, but I was locked in basements.
Yeah, you got that in your cookie jar. Yeah.
Like, that's nothing. That's like, y'all, come on, guys. Like, we can let's talk about it. Let's get there. And then you tell them the why. So really it's about teaching those managers and building them into leaders, those directors who sometimes get promoted because they're in the right place at the right time, not because they actually have the capacity and capability to do the role in the way that it needs to be done, into more influential and persuasive leaders, and helping them understand the dynamic of the relationship with the people on your teams, and showing them what you expect +1, because you got to give people something to aspire to, +1, to where they follow you now. Like, you're not pulling them, you're not telling them what to do. They're following you out of admiration and respect. That's where you got to get.
Yeah, I can tell you subscribe to John Maxwell. Those are like his pillars of leadership that you're quoting there, man. I love it, dude. I would have loved to work with somebody like you. And the reason that I say that is because the work that you were doing when you were working in corporate, it sounds like lonely work, because I remember being there. I remember being the guy, walking through a plant or construction site, and you're doing all of this, and then you having your peers saying, "Oh man, that dude's always messing around with the employees. Don't he have something better to do? He's this or he's that. He's too friendly with the subordinates," even though you're getting more work done than any and everybody else, because you're actually fixing the real problems. Did you have any pushback from any of your peers, with you being so connected with the people that you're leading?
Nope, not at all. And you know why? Because I partner. And this is where this is what I feel like corporate America misses. You got a lot of individuals. The military teaches you how to truly be a team, because your life could depend on it, literally depend on it. So when I think of a carrier flight deck, and you've got different color shirts, and you've got airplanes taking off, you've got them landing, right? All at the same time. And you've got different color shirts, and everybody has a different role in that process, okay? And and you can stand up, and they call it the crow's nest on a carrier. It's like at the very top, just underneath the radars, which probably actually in hindsight wasn't the best thing to do. And so sometimes I go up there, and it was like an orchestra that you'd see on the flight deck, and everybody's moving, and it's like harmony, right? And what was cool is everybody adopted the priority to the mission, which was to launch and recover aircraft safely. That was the mission of every person on that flight deck. Not one person was more important than the person standing next to them. Not one person, Tony. So if I said, "Tony, you're not fueling the aircraft fast enough," and I try to do it, We might literally lose lives because we're going to lose an aircraft. It's going to crash on the flight deck because now you're not doing your role because you feel like you could do it better than somebody else. And when you get in a position and you get managers, and I used to tell people this, you know, when you'd have everybody coins them as tough conversations. I'm like, no, there's opportunities for everybody, and feedback's a gift, and I'm going to help you understand what that looks like for you. And when you get to the point where everybody's role is equally important, no matter what level you're at, what you can do as a team is dynamic and changes the game. And it doesn't mean that you don't have to have accountability and all these other things that you need to do as a leader. Matter of fact, you need to do that more to protect the hard workers you got, right? And decide if it's a skill or a will thing with somebody. If it's a skill, I got you. If it's a will and you're not going to pick your initiative up, then you got to go. And I'm going to help you actually make the decision before I need to fire you. You're going to make it yourself. When you get harmonious like that, you protect the hard workers in the group because you're not afraid to have the tough conversations with people when they need to be had, but you're also celebrating the successes 80% of the time so nobody feels like they're getting picked on either. It's amazing what can happen. And that was what I adopted. That was what I took. I said, hey, me as a senior director, I'm not any better than anybody else. You know what? All of you leave. Anybody can do your job. It ain't gonna be me. The managers leave. Who's gonna do? Everything's gonna fall apart. I leave. If I leave, I'm the person that everything's gonna fall apart the least when I go. And that to me is servant leadership, where you put other people in front of your own interests, this is crazy. People don't get this, so common sense. And when you've got a team like that and you're winning, you're crushing it, you're winning, region of the year, KPIs and metrics, world class, you're going to get your promo too. But people are so worried about getting their promo, they don't realize if they get everybody else's, they're going to get theirs in the process. Such a miss in corporate America.
Yeah. It's almost like it's almost like you work yourself out of getting it because everybody's like, who is this guy or gal or them beating their chest? And it's just like, you don't need to do that. If you promote everybody else, you highlight everybody else's accomplishments, you don't have to do this because they'll already be saying, you know what? Walt supported me on this issue, on that issue. But that goes back to the whole thing. You do it with good intention and not just so that you can be mentioned. And that's one thing that I see in you, dude. I would have loved to serve under your leadership. I don't say that too often on this show. Well, yeah, dude, we have awesome leaders on this show all the time. But yeah, man, you seem like an incredible leader. And I feel like corporate America, I was going to say that they lost, but it sounds like you're doing a lot of good for corporate America. What made you leave?
So yeah, I working 12 to 14, COVID hit. The company I worked for, we tripled the amount of work after COVID hit. So unlike people getting laid off or furloughed, or maybe they just didn't have a lot of work, we tripled. Same staff though. And, I just was basically doing three people's roles. They needed to hire for one. The other person had kind of stepped out because they were doing something else, and it was me. And I had gotten to the point where I was talking to my senior leaders, like, you guys need to hire somebody. I can't continue this pace because I'm in conversations with divisional vice presidents and people higher up in the company because it's just me. So I'm living and breathing in these senior level meetings. We're all at home, so there wasn't much of a separation between work and home. The second I go green on WebEx, because my leaders are so used to me being involved and being there when they need me, because that's the mark of a leader. I owe it to them to be there for them. And the influence and how I help them through their opportunities and strengthen their strengths, that's going to affect not only them, their career, their families, exponentially 5 years later, exponentially 10 years later. It's not about what they're doing right now. And so I'm just grinding. Even my my managers are telling me, well, you need to take some days off. And I'm like, how? And I'm delegating, Tony. I'm delegating so much, but some things you have to just keep, right? But I'm delegating the heck out of some stuff. So it wasn't like I was just trying to just do it all myself, because they were amazing leaders and they were very capable, but they were also feeling the stress and the burden of the same thing. And I'd go green on WebEx and it would be like, are you available? Are you available? And I'd be on sometimes till, 6:30 in the morning to 8
But
p.m.
that's like a Skype or something,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So yeah, you'd see a little green circle around my face. And the second it would go green, and when we're in the office, they used to joke, they used to put numbers on my doors and be like, I'm next. I'm going down,
That's a good, hey, that's good, man.
I loved it.
That says that you're doing your job, but
Yeah.
also overworked.
Yes. And so I wasn't getting any help at that senior level. And I finally had a nervous breakdown. People live in quiet desperation. And this is what this book is about. Now, this whole mission I'm on is to get people to start speaking their truth and stop living in quiet desperation, because that's where your mental health suffers. And I was trying to speak my truth, and I was trying to speak that I needed some help. And by the way, I got a giant bandwidth for what I can handle. So if I'm calling uncle, it's bad. And I kind of got snappy with my wife one day, a couple of days before I had this breakdown, and I was just frustrated, and she didn't deserve it. And I said, oh, I'm so hungry. Like, why dinner's done? It's 6 o'clock. Because I would get up at like 5 and try to go to the gym and then be on the computer. And, I'm trying to, and I'm a dad and trying to make games. And I got all this stuff, right? And she goes, what is wrong with you? And I just broke down. I started crying a little bit. And I said, I'm not even physically or emotionally tired anymore. I'm tired in the depths of my soul. Like, I can't even begin to explain to you how tired I am. And it was like running on full speed from the time I was a child, working my tail off in the military, go enlisted to officer, and then promoted 3 times in 4 years in corporate America, on the cusp of another promo where I was at. And all of it so that my lineage and my legacy would never experience what I did. So I'm running, and by the way, I resolved my trauma, but what makes you strong is also can make you weak. And I'm running to build this life I feel like I have to have. And I'm freaking empty. And outside, everybody's like, you're a retired military officer. You're an executive of corporate, of Fortune 3. Like,
How dare you not be happy, right?
You got a wife of 25 years, or you guys been together 25 years. You got 2 amazing teenagers. Like, wow, you got the world by the cojones, That's what they're telling me. And inside, I'm dead. I just can't. And I'm sitting here talking. They finally hired a director, and I'm talking to her and just trying to help her on board and try not to give her too much and overwhelm her at first, even though I just want to be like, here's a third of what I'm doing.
Take it.
And I'm talking to her, and it's about a couple months in for her, and I just I was like, I gotta go. I closed my laptop, and I felt like I was having a heart attack. And I know people listening to this can feel what I'm saying right now, that stress, the overwhelm, the fact that we're working so hard, we're doing so many things that we don't go actually do the things that fill our bucket and give us enjoyment and give us joy so that we can go pour into other people. Again, we just keep emptying the tank. And I took 2 aspirin because my neck's pulsating, my head's hurting. It's like my middle of my back is so tight. My chest is pounding. 30 minutes later, so that I sat here for a minute and in this chair. And 30 minutes later, to my wife, I need to go to the hospital. And she's like, I'm about to drive you. So we go. My blood pressure was 187 over 98.
Oh shit.
30 minutes after I took 2 aspirin.
Normal blood pressure is 120 over 80. Right?
I get it every week, right, when I go to the doctor. So today mine was 118 over 78, right? So super hypertensive cardiac arrest type blood pressure. And I had a guy talk to me in there, and he says, it's at the VA hospital, because I don't know why I went there instead of going. I needed to talk to that guy, I think. I think God was positioning me to talk to him. And I go in, and it's not an emergency room, but the one by my house, right? It was like a bunch of clinics. And I didn't realize there was no ER in there. And I was like, I don't know, I feel like I might be having a heart attack. They're like, oh, we got a car, right. And all of a sudden, people cascaded on me. I don't even know what they said over the loudspeaker. People cascaded, they hooked me up. And I'm talking to this male nurse who was a combat medic in Afghanistan. And he tells me, he says, hey, I used to run trauma centers here, and all the stuff you're talking about, I think you just had an anxiety attack. I don't know for sure, but we're going to make sure. And he's kind of whispering it to me. He's like, I feel you. I've been in combat. I've been in uber stressful situations. And that stress that I had of go, and never getting a break and it never alleviating caused me to have the same thing, which is why I'm just the head nurse here instead of running multiple centers now. And so I went down and I saw a psychologist, and I had my first ever panic attack. And Tony, I'm telling you, and I left corporate America. I took the 2 months of disability. I really took a look at my life. It took me 2 months to get mentally fresh again.
Yeah.
No joke, no joke. And 2 months to get mentally fresh. And God knew he could physically take I didn't need my body no more to do my work. The only thing he was going to be able to do was knock me so far down and humble me in a way that I've never been humbled, in order to get me to step through the door he'd been trying to get me to step through and walk into my purpose. And that's what I'm doing now. Do you know I've never had one since? Never had one before, never had one since.
It's that moment.
Do you know why? Because I'm walking in my purpose now, which fills my heart, my soul, my energy. And I'm able to still do what I loved about leadership, and that's pouring into other people and breathing life into them and success. And so that's why I left corporate America and transitioned to do what I'm doing. And I love my wife for this. And your Mrs. Price said the same. I came home and my wife's like, oh my gosh, Brandon, are you okay? And I've never seen you. You've always been the helper and the rock for everybody. I've never seen you get knocked down like that. And we kind of talked about it. She's like, I've been trying to get you to write a book for 20 years. You said you wanted to be an inspirational speaker for 25, since I met you 25 years ago. Let's go. Let's do it. And I'm like, man, I'm going to leave 80% of this income on the table. That's a lot of money. And I had an epiphany. I had all the money and I was miserable, the most miserable I've been in my life.
Wow.
And so I had to just step into my purpose. So for those of you guys who are listening, and you're chasing the money and you're realizing the money's not what drives happiness, listen to your soul before you get knocked to your knees like I did. Like, take the advice of people who walk that path before you and know exactly what the end of that road looks like. And so I've had multiple people call me that have left that company because the anxiety is so bad, and they knew kind of why I left, and because I'm vulnerable and transparent. And so it's amazing. Now I'm doing this. Now I'm on Tony Taylor's podcast, making it happen.
I love it. I love it, man. This episode is, people laugh at me, but this is one of my favorites, man, because I see so much of our lives parallel. And how do you say that? Parallel.
Yeah.
Parallel. You're the officer, It's like, but man,
I just means I'm good at delegating and telling people what to do now.
Oh man, it's so crazy. It's like I wish me and you were friends, like during this time, man, during the time that you were going through what you were going through, because it sounds like I was going through the same thing. And I'm so happy that we both have incredible spouses in our corner to push us, to push us that way. Because dude, without my wife, I don't know where I would be at. I don't know where my credit score would be. I don't know what I would be doing, or if I would even still be alive. So, man, kudos to your wife for having your back. Kudos to you for stepping up and doing this business. I know that is hard, breaking into to being a speaker, to freaking being so vulnerable with yourself, because dude, it's freaking hard. Did the speaking come easy for you when you first got into it?
Yeah, I can't even. I'm not even act like it didn't. I love it. I get jacked up, and you get me in front of people, especially, and I'm getting. When we were going through the rough time in corporate America, we had this year end for us was like our Super Bowl time, and I'm in there and I'm like, and my voice was grainy because I was kind of sick, and I'm like, the best teams are forged through the fire. Like, nobody builds a team during the championship. You build them in the toughest times, and that makes you champ. And I'm just giving it. And it wasn't like I listened to a speech. It's just me. It's very natural for me to do that because I speak from my spirit and I speak from my soul. I don't try to speak in a way that I think people want to hear because it's so inauthentic. And then I'm not happy doing it at that point either. So the challenge is really, I'm going to a junior high and talking about character and integrity. So I've got a thing booked in March, right? To go talk about that. I've got my thing, what I want to do. And then matter of fact, you talked about peers. Did you have that peer conflict? One of my peers who left the company I was at went to another one. He put me in his budget for March, and then later in the year, to come do speaking at their company because he already knows what I can deliver. But
Oh,
that
yeah.
was a partnership we had, because an implementation doesn't win if service ain't there. Service don't win if implementation don't do a good job with the client, right? So it's like you build these synergies because we're not competing against each other. We're trying to elevate each other. And then now I just was asked a couple days ago. I don't know if you know who he is, but he's a pretty big speaker called Marcus Black.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked me to come speak at his Embrace Your Ambition event in Denver in June. And just how humbling that I'm the new kid on the block in this, but he recognized the power, potential, and purpose in what I was doing and the spirit that I have to really pour into people, vetted me, did all those things to invite me to come speak at that. And so it was such I say, be blessed so you can be a blessing a lot. He's blessed, and he blessed me with this. And then being able to, people like you to have me on the podcast and let me share your space in your audience to get this message out so that people quit living in this quiet desperation and they start breaking out and living this authentic, fulfilled lives that's aligned with their purpose for their life. And you can find that purpose in corporate America. I found it leading leaders, right? Pouring into leaders and developing them. When I got that taken away because I was just at meetings all day because there was nobody else left to go to the meeting but me, I started losing some of that. And that kind of took away that passion. And by taking away that passion, it just had a cascading effect after. So we got to stay aligned to that purpose of what we're supposed to do and what our spirits are calling us to do, instead of just being, and I tell people a lot, people are uncomfortably comfortable. And they sit there and they're super loyal to where they work. And even though they're getting grinded on and people are making, I don't know, let's say $23 an hour, and somebody comes in and now they want to pay new people $24 an hour. What about the person who just sat there busting their tail for you in the last 2 years,
Right.
And I was at the executive level, we're not talking about how much we make, but I saw it from the associate level. And I said, you're giving new people coming in a bonus that you ain't even giving the people who just been riding the storm. Take care of the people who are there. Take care.
They're out there telling people how much they're getting paid because they action when they get hired.
Yeah, and then who dealt with that? Me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, or I'm equipping my leaders, my managers to deal with it. So I just think people, if we don't, this great resignation that we're in, there's a different kind of power for the employee now. And that doesn't mean you abuse that. That means you have leverage to get paid what you're worth. But stop being miserable and uncomfortable and loyal to somebody who will literally replace you tomorrow. Instead, be fulfilled, happy, joyful, motivated. Find that job so that when you're in the company you're in, or find that role, find that part of what you do, whatever it is, so that when you are responsible or you're even an individual contributor, the way you pour into your work changes and it's different and it's elevated, which is just going to benefit you in the end too. So I think that's really the mindset people have to have around. It doesn't mean leave. It just means find your passion and purpose within the scope of what you're already doing. And people forget that sometimes because it's so busy, and then you kind of get the resentment and stress versus what people don't. And then I'll stop for a second. And then what people don't realize, they don't realize that some of that hardest things they're going through, the hardest that getting knocked down on my butt like I did and having that anxiety attack, that happened for me. It didn't happen to me. Like I could have chose to just go through it and complain and get inside my own feelings and let it cascade me further. But I said, what am I supposed to figure out from this? How am I supposed to grow from this challenge I'm in? And sometimes you're growing by helping somebody else grow. Sometimes you're growing internally. And literally, because I chose to grow, because I chose to say this is for me, not to me, and my mentality was that, the way that I bounced back has changed my life. And now I'm seriously changing other people's lives along the way. How could you not love life if you're doing that?
Oh, yeah. I love it. I love it. If you, for and this is for the listeners, the viewers, and myself, man, the folks that are going through a challenge and they feel like, man, this is too big for me. I want to give up. What would you tell that person right now that's on the verge of just giving up, man?
I would say you've made it through 100% of the things you thought you would never make it through before. You're still here. You're still standing. You're still fighting. And I like to tell people who've been through trauma, you're not a victim. You're not a survivor. You didn't just make it. You're a warrior. You're a warrior from the abuse that you've been through. You're a fighter. You're powerful. And when you start to look at that lens and you start to say, oh my gosh, look at these powers that I got from this trauma that I've been through, because people get stuck in the victim mentality. You might have been victimized, but you can, instead of being a victim, you can use your story to empower you to grow. And then as you grow and as you heal, your ability to empower somebody else to grow just extends far beyond anything that you ever thought that you would do. And so what I would tell people is keep taking a step forward. And I really want to hit home with this. There's 4 different things that I teach. Speak your truth about your trauma. You need to accept the reality of what happened to you without sugarcoating, and acknowledge the feelings that came with it. I cried, punched heavy bags, I lift weights, I played basketball very physically, I ran. I did all of these things to just get this emotion out of me. Talked about it. And then I found forgiveness for my abusers, even the heinous version of what happened to me, because those abusers were hurt people. They were hurt people that hurt me. And it was never about me. It was always about them hating themselves and never facing that pain and running through that tunnel of darkness we feel might not end into the light. And the last thing is just exposing those superpowers. And when you get to the point where you start to see these gifts that turn into superpowers, then you start to think, what did I learn from this? Who did I become from this? I'm compassionate. I'm empathetic. I got a ton of resilience. I got grit. I got initiative. I care for people. When you start to think in that mode right there, instead of why it happened to me, I promise you it's like going from 0 to 100. And that tunnel, it's almost like a tunnel of darkness, and it goes around and you can't see the light when it's tunneled through the mountain, right? And you're going around a curve, but then you see the light. You see the light, you start hauling ass towards that light. And I tell you what, if you can go to waltmckinley.com, that's my website. You can follow me on Instagram at Walt McKinley Motivation. I put out daily content, motivational content. And then you can also go to monstersinmyhouse.com and get the prologue, get a book teaser, because it's going to get ready to go for pre-sale here in the next week or two.
It's good. It's really good.
Thanks. And ingest, right? Ingest the things that are going to make you powerful. Stop watching the freaking news. Stop talking about vax versus not vaxxed. Stop talking about what corporations are doing or not doing. Stop watching the stupid fight crap that happens on TikToks and Instagram Reels and all this stuff. Start putting things in your mind that leave you in a positive, powerful place. And you will start to change yourself drastically overnight. And if you're struggling with your trauma, find somebody to speak your truth to. Find somebody that you can just say it out loud to. And hell, if you really don't have nobody to speak your truth to, then go to my website and find me. I will allow you to speak your truth so that heavy backpack, that baggage that weighs you down, that pain, that despair, the uncomfortableness, the lack of self-worth, the self-limiting beliefs, the feeling like you're not good enough even when you're having success, I will let you speak your truth so you can step into your true power, potential, and purpose, and you can live abundantly in the way that you deserve. Because I promise every single one of us that have been through anything absolutely deserve everything we got coming.
Wow. Dude, you're a beautiful speaker, man. I love to share a stage with you someday, man. You're incredible speaker, man. I want to tell you from the bottom of my heart, it means so much to me that you thought enough of me and the show to reach out and come on. I'm so glad that we did this, man. I know that you've been a blessing to the viewers, a blessing to the listeners, a blessing to me. Like I said, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you, Tony. Thank you for having me on and blessing me with your stage. And I said it at the beginning, be blessed so you can be a blessing. And when you live your life blessed and you look at the things that are happening around you that we miss the blessing of it because we're so worried about what we didn't get instead of what we did, and start being, full of gratitude for the things that we've gotten, for the things that we're getting. you can start blessing other people along the way. And you bless me by allowing me to be on this and share the stage with you today. And yes, absolutely. We need to share a stage one day. We would be awesome doing it together at the same time, just riffing off each other.
We should create something. Yeah.
Let's go.
We can talk about that when we get off. Man, again, I appreciate you. I appreciate you, the viewer, the listener. I think that you're amazing. I'm very appreciative for everybody that show up every single week. I see you. Please reach out to my brother, Walt. Go ahead and give us your Instagram handles and all of that. I know you're on Instagram killing it. I see you.
Yeah. So my website is www.waltmckinley.com. If you go there, all my social media is on there. But my Instagram is Walt McKinley Motivation. My Facebook is Walter McKinley. Use the ER at the end of that because I had an old page that I didn't create a business through that. So I'm using my primary personal page and letting people into my life a little bit and seeing my family and stuff too. And then last but not least, Monsters in My House, my true story, my memoir of how I overcame torturous abuse, and it's to live triumphantly and live in abundance and live a happy life, is going to be released here in the next couple of weeks on pre-sale. And the official launch is February 26th. So go to www.monstersinmyhouse, so monstersinmyhouse.com. That's the landing page. You can go get the free book teaser right now. And then it'll sign you up for emails, and I'm going to keep people informed as we continue down this path and pre-sales and everything else. And I'm also going to be sharing, only people who were involved know this, I'm also going to be sharing some additional pieces of the book in there too. Some things that'll kind of light people's fire for where they can go and how they can resolve their own trauma and part of this process. And so join me in the movement. This book isn't even about me, guys. This book is about creating a movement of people who are not only healed so that that trauma is resolved, but they're healed in a place where now we can move on to the next wave of people and start healing them. And if we do it right, we won't ever have to do this again at some point, because we won't have children who are traumatized by traumatized adults. And we can all just live in a much more harmonious society than we live in today. So I love y'all. Thank you, Tony, for having me on. I'm jacked up. Like, oh Lord, I probably go for another 3 friggin' hours in here. I love this topic. Reach out to me and let me know. And I would love for you guys to go to the website, monstersinmyhouse.com, and start to get involved with this movement we're building. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. We'll see y'all next week. That was great. If you enjoyed this podcast, well, I'm sure you enjoyed it. If you're still here with us, what I want you to do is head over to your favorite podcast and streaming network and give us a download, subscribe to the channel, and also let us know what you think about the show. And from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you for the things that you've done. Thank you for the things that you're doing. And especially thank you for the things that you're going to do, because I know that you're going to do something amazing.